And good morning, everybody. It
Good
is
morning.
Wednesday.
Good
It
morning.
is Wednesday. What is it? It's September 17th. This is Constitution Day, right? Am I correct on that?
You are
The
correct.
17th, Constitution Day. Great day to have a podcast. So again, welcome everybody. This is episode. If you're following the New Patriot Pulse, it's episode 23. But if you're still following us on Two Guys Drinking Coffee, it's 227. And because of the fact that it is the third Wednesday of the month, we have Jim M back with us. So technically, with Fred on there and Jim M, we got the Two Guys Drinking Coffee crew back. So, hey, that's a good thing. So, anyways, Jim, welcome. It's been our it's been our tradition when Jim M and I are planning a podcast that we use the occasion to meet for breakfast to discuss topics for the show. And I got to confess, though I have a particular selfish reason for liking these sessions with Jim, besides the breakfast. The selfish reason for me is that Jim does all the work. He puts all the notes together. He comes up with the topic. And Jim, you didn't disappoint this week. I'll tell you, you came loaded for bear. When I put it all together and looked and actually gave it topic numbers, we have 10 topics to go through, and we'll see if we can get through it in an hour. But before I turn it over to you, because that's what I want to do. You've got your notes. I'm going to turn over to you, but first a little bit of housekeeping, like we always do. If you're watching us, regardless of what channel you're watching us on, whether it's Facebook for Two Guys or Facebook for the Patriot Pulse, click the like, click the share, get it out, help us overcome the algorithms that are shadow banning us still. And I did check, we are going live right now on X and on Rumble. And we also, because of the Patriot Pulse, we are not banned yet from that part, so we can do YouTube. So we're actually live on YouTube as well, and Twitch and Kick. So I think that's about it. So anyways, help us beat the shadow banning and help us get out there. Jim, again, good morning. I'm going to turn right to your notes, and since all this gives me a headache, I hate economics, and you are the guru of all gurus in that field. Take it away.
Well, I wouldn't go quite that far, James. That's a pretty big reputation or something to try to live up to. I did bring a mug here that one of our regulars down at JW handed me. So it's got the money thing on it. There's Mr. Franklin and all that. So for speaking economics, so I got a special mug.
Good one. Excellent.
Let me start off before we go any farther that some of the topics we go through can be discerning or can be discouraging or upsetting or maybe pessimistic or whatever. That's not the purpose here. The Bible in Hosea 6:4 says, "My people perish for a lack of knowledge." So knowledge is you can view it however you want. You can use it as a tool to do good, to protect your loved ones and to plan your life. Or you can take the knowledge and just get depressed over what you hear. So it's what you do. And I would recommend to people, and I'm going to do this, James, there's this book called the Bible. And if you need hope, our hope is in Jesus Christ ultimately, not in this world, not in finances, not in money, although that's what we're going to talk about here. But I want to empower people with understanding what is really going on, and so that they can make proper decisions. But of course, I've got to say this. Don't believe a word I say. You do your own research, draw your own conclusions, make your own decisions, and live with the consequences. So be like the Bereans in the New Testament, and do your own research on all this. With that said, Jim, we're going to be referencing some post numbers. I'm just going to do a little thing here that if folks want to go deeper, I do a Facebook page called Discerning the Times. And so if we say post number 7-8, 7 is the episode and 8 is the comment section. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to, just so folks, if they do actually want to know what this is, they can actually find and read the articles for themselves. So let's start off with let's start off with the first of the 10 topics. And I want to try to go through some of the first ones quickly so we can focus on the latter ones. Because the first ones get the headline news, but the latter ones are the deeper topics. So the first one, let's talk about jobs. Let's go back in history. So, James, for a year or two or three, we always said underneath the Biden administration the jobs were fake, and that they were not what they were supposed to be. And so they came out in the last week or so that the United States created from about April 24 to April 25, created 911,000 fewer jobs than were reported. That's almost 1 million people that don't have jobs that they said had jobs. In post 7/9, Bloomberg economist basically came out and said the unspoken words. We have been in a recession since April of 24. I would argue that we've been in a recession even longer than that.
Well, the one reason why the job numbers are falling is because we're busting a lot of the illegals that have jobs that Americans should have. And those jobs were counted just like the votes were counted.
Yeah. However they did it, the system's rigged. There were systems rigged on all kinds of different levels. We live more in what someone said, the difference between Americans and Russians back in, say, 30, 40 years ago. The Russians knew the government statistics were propaganda. The Americans didn't. So anyhow, so we got horrible job growth. Jim, can you bring up image 415?
Sure. 415 right here.
Yeah, this is so here's the monthly job creation for the last several years. And if you look at some of the numbers, 2022 is a little distorted because we're still coming out of that COVID certificate of vaccination ID AI event. And the numbers have been going down, however, ever since. And what happened back in May and June is that we had horrible numbers. In fact, those numbers even got revised even worse. So we dropped to the point of only creating 17,000 jobs. Now those have been revised to at least one of those months is now negative job growth. So the numbers are heading in the wrong direction, even by the falsified statistics. In other words, it's getting to the point where they can't hide it anymore. And so it's something just to be very concerned with. So what's the solution to this? You can take that screen down if you wish, Jim. Is that they're talking about suspending publishing the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and that's in post 4.8, so that we don't have to look at the numbers anymore. That they just won't share those numbers with us anymore. So that should be very discerning, and that's just in the last couple of weeks that statement's starting to come out. So when they stop sharing the data, there are problems.
Well, let me ask you this. If the data is bogus to begin with, and you don't trust the data that they're providing you, what's the difference whether they share it or not? Because even if they share it, it's either not going to be believed, or it's going to say, these numbers are crap. So why, I guess that was my first thought on that.
Sure. So let's go. Let's hit at the very core root. Americans want transparency. Americans are craving for truth, transparency. Let us know what's going on. Be honest with us. Now, we know that they're not going to be, because that's history would prove that statement correct. However, if you do at least release some data, people can look at it, smart people, and say, this is bogus or whatever. And then you can call out who's reporting and saying, no, this is wrong. This is false. You're lying to us. Otherwise it just gets hidden and no one ever even talks about it anymore. Out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, but there's been a lot of job cancellations over the last couple of months too, because these people have been working jobs and getting paid for money that they never should have been getting paid for. People doing jobs that they're unneeded. So yes, the numbers got to go down some to improve some of the stuff that's going on. Because right now, there's a lot of people getting paid for jobs that they never should be getting paid for.
Well, I'm not sure I understand or completely agree
What I
with that.
mean by
Somebody's
is
working a
we
job and they're
cancel a
getting
lot
a
of
paycheck.
we
to
can't
keep
like
paying.
the federal building where they fired all those people out of that federal building. Those people were sitting on their butts at home getting paid for nothing. They should have been fired.
Okay, so if you're talking about useless workers,
Yes.
that's one thing. That is not the full picture here, because in post 629, this is from ADP. So this is actual payroll processing outside of a lot of times the government type of thing. In August, the job growth slowed dramatically to just 54,000, and that may well get ended up. They may revise that data too to even being lower. So the trend is the job market's falling off the cliff.
So what are they saying as a reason for that?
Oh, the economy's slowing down. If you want to get really deep into it, one could argue we've reached debt saturation. The other more surface level things would be a lot of confusion with the tariffs. People are simply tapped out debt wise. They don't have any more money. The savings accounts are emptied. Remember during COVID, they pumped trillions and trillions of dollars into the economy. Everybody got stimmy checks. Some people went out and simply spent that money. Other people actually were wise and saved it. However, a lot of those savings are now gone. So that artificial stimulation of the economy through all those stimmy checks, that actually made the economy, quote unquote, look better than it should have, because some people saved that money and over the last 2-3 years have now been drawing down their savings account, keeping the economy going a little bit more. But those savings accounts are empty now. And so now you're starting to see the whole thing kind of come crashing in.
Well, yeah, that's two different issues between jobs and savings accounts. You'd think,
well, if people don't have the savings anymore to spend, then the jobs aren't there.
well, if you're looking at it from the perspective of I'm not buying as much, so the demand for the product is not as great, so we don't have to make as many widgets because the demand went down. I would, yeah, that's I can see from an economic point of view how on a when you look at the economy that way, it can have it, but that also has a delayed effect. In other words, the job numbers don't immediately go down when people stop buying. You know what I'm saying? There is a delay in there somewhere.
Well,
So,
and what we mentioned on the very first post is the numbers have been fabricated for the past year. The spending has been going down. The jobs have been going down. They just haven't reported it accurately.
okay,
Let me ask you this.
Let me ask you this. If, and I know this is a big if, but if the jobs come back into this country because there are companies that have taken their jobs over outside our borders and they've pledged to, bring manufacturing back here, could you see a reversal in that because of the fact that, I mean, again, we all got to believe, at least for now, that they will follow through. And man, I realize factories have to retool, they have to be built. So it's not a next week type thing, but is there hope on the horizon if these factories do come back?
Well, if the factories come back, then yes.
They'll be like Monday and go get a bunch of 491 illegals to do the jobs that they should be giving to Americans.
Well, hopefully that stem is changing. That tide is being stemmed. Whatever I'm trying to say.
We're talking big picture here with millions of jobs and so forth. You talked about manufacturing, Jim, so that leads right to the next thing. Is manufacturing going to come back? Well, let's take a look at what's actually happening as of right now, at least. So in 632, we talk about manufacturing. Here's the end. 651.
You're buffering a little bit there, Jim.
651 image.
Yeah, I got that right here.
So it's been kind of up and down a little bit. If you go back a bit, there were some decreases in the fall. Then we had some increases, but overall, manufacturing payrolls fall for the fourth month. In the previous post, manufacturing activity has contracted for the sixth straight month. So manufacturing is in a decline. And hopefully those jobs do come back. Companies have pledged that. But as of right now, we're still shedding manufacturing jobs. We're losing them as of right now, for whatever reason that might be.
Well, and again, going back to what you're saying about the jobs part, if demand goes down, obviously companies have to lay off. But the other thing too is, and I mentioned this yesterday in our breakfast meeting. Can't remember what context it was, but I think it's worth talking about here. If you got a, and I know our buddy Tom on the podcast here will understand this because he spent time on a ship. You don't turn a big ship on a dime.
Sure.
It takes a while. I don't know how many miles. Maybe Tom can shed light on that from a nautical mile point of view. But if I want to do a 180 in the middle of the ocean, I'm not going to do it within 100 yards. It's going to be a big slow turn. And I would suggest that the economy is the same way, that perhaps perhaps things that have been put in place. Two things that were happening in the previous administration are still affecting us in this administration because you can't turn the ship that quick. And the other thing, the corrective measures, if there are any, and we can debate that as well, but the corrective measures that have been put into place so far this year will take time to turn that ship. So just a thought.
And you know what, you're talking future. I'm simply reporting on the economics of today. So
Tom shared something.
Yeah. Yep. Tom says it's miles and we move fast. So, okay. I always go to Tom for the Navy questions. Okay, go ahead.
So let's move on to inflation. So in post 533, core inflation rose 2.9%, the highest since February, but also in 4949, wholesale inflation was surging. Jim, can you pull up this one example here, 528, image 528? This was veggie prices, wholesale veggie prices from June to July. This isn't for the year. This is over 1 month to the next. Went up 39%. So there is some underlying inflation out there, and we just need to be aware of this. That inflation is still a problem. You can take that now down, Jim.
Yeah, I think anybody that goes to the grocery store can't argue that fact. I mean, the price. Number one, the prices aren't coming down, and if anything, they are going up. It's hitting the consumer harder. I'll
give you a reason why they're freaking out, though. I'll give you a reason why they're freaking out. RFK got rid of that chemical that makes these fruit last for 6 months to a year without rotting. Now they have to sell fresher fruit. So guess what? Now it's going to cost them more money to get it to people.
That could be a contributing
factor.
That
chemical stops fruit from rotting. They can't explain how you can pick a fruit from your tree and it may last a week before it starts to rot, but you get a free piece of fruit from a grocery store and it'll last forever. Why? Because they're putting chemicals on it.
Well, that's one aspect to it. There's other ones. A very big one, and we won't know for probably a few more hours. In general, since we're going to talk about this later, but we're talking about inflation. It's relevant to it very much so. That the Federal Reserve is meeting. Historically speaking, economic analysis says that when you lower interest rates, you get inflation. And if you want to slow inflation, you need to raise interest rates. The classic example was 1980-ish, when inflation here was 10, 15% in the country. Paul Volcker raised the interest rates up to like 20%. It did a number on the economy, but it got that inflation under control, and then we were able to respond positively. The Federal Reserve right now is meeting, and the analysis based on the poor economic data is that they will drop interest rates 1/4 to 0.5% today. We know Trump is calling for 0% interest rates. In fact, he's threatened to fire Jerome Powell if he doesn't drop the interest rates. So it would appear that interest rates are going to come down. That would imply get ready for a lot more inflation.
I think they're banking that tariffs is going to help us out, but we don't know because we haven't been into this tariff game for a long time.
Well, tariffs will add inflation. Because, like as our founding father said, tariffs were a tax on the people, which is why tariffs were to go through the Congress, because the founding fathers viewed them as taxes, import taxes specifically. So those import tariffs, they get passed on to the consumer. Now, so far, a lot of companies, and we're a little bit ahead of the game here in the notes, but a lot of the companies have been trying to eat the tariff cost. So instead of passing it along to the consumer, they've been trying to just absorb it themselves. However, a lot of the tariffs have never actually been implemented until recently. Remember, there were tariff pauses.
Right.
So we haven't actually seen the full effect. It wasn't until the beginning of August where we made that unilateral, which means it was one way, that we slapped 10, 20% tariffs. I think most of them were 10% tariffs on 90 different countries because none of them came to the negotiating table to talk with us, apparently. Right. So we just slapped them with the 10% tariff. It takes 4, 6, 8 weeks, something like that, roughly speaking, before that product that's been shipped overseas arrives on our shores, gets hit with that new tariff, and then gets moved to the consumer. So it would appear that as we head into the fall here, probably right about now or into mid-October, we should start to see the inflation aspect of those tariffs on those 90 different countries, 10% or so, start to impact the consumer.
Okay. Well, that's definitely a possibility. Like you say, some of the importers have been, absorbing those taxes, which tells me they were making some pretty good money to begin with, because if they weren't, and don't get me wrong, in a capitalistic society, make as much as you can. And it's the idea that if you're pricing yourself out of the market, you're going to lose business. So let the free economy, set the prices.
I can only speak for myself because I do have a business and we're geared towards educational products for kids and adults. And I know I placed a lot of my Christmas orders in July, and there are products I no longer order because the price went up so much. There are some products I said, I'll eat that 10% tariff. I saw it go. The product went from, say, a cost of $4 to $4.30. I'll eat the 30 cents or something like that. I'll still charge the retail price that I used to. And some product didn't go up at all. But like I said, some I had to raise prices, and other ones I just said the consumer will never pay this, so I will not be carrying that product anymore.
Yeah, I know.
That's great me and Bradford, for example. That's just a case in point. So every business will have
great American-made products, though.
What's that?
You might want to stop trying to buy stuff that's more made in America than have to face the tariff issue.
Fred, I have promoted Made in America for 15 years. And consistently over that 15 years, the products that were made in America have been shipped overseas. Now, if they start to come back, and there are some companies like I Carry Puzzles, for example, they are made in America. And so that's a huge emphasis.
Okay, good.
But if I don't have an alternative, I either have to eat the tariff price myself, pass it on to the consumer, or if I don't think the consumer can bear the cost, the retail price, then I need to just not carry that product.
Well,
that's the reality.
I'm going to put a comment up here that Tom made, and I think it has some bearing on the conversation, because how much of what we're seeing here and still dealing with goes all the way back to the days of NAFTA, when as Ross Perot said, that giant sucking sound is jobs leaving the country.
I voted for Perot in '92. Yeah, NAFTA, we don't have to. So basically, that wasn't the first, but it was another big push. We offshored our textile industries. We offshored our steel making. We offshored to Mexico a lot of auto manufacturing, and then that set us up to do the China Fair Trade Agreement in 1999, and then we shipped a bunch of jobs over to China. All of these agreements were voted on by both Republicans, Democrats, and signed into law by the presidents at the time.
Yeah, I agree.
It's been a uniparty on this topic for 40, 50, 60 years.
Yeah. But my point is, I think we're going to have to go through some growing pains to start getting stuff produced in America and ignore it and stop buying stuff from overseas. People don't want to do that. People want it fast. People want it today. But until we start getting some more American entrepreneurs to produce stuff that we don't have to buy overseas, we're gonna have some pain.
And we're going to have inflation. I mean, I go back to when we were buying the Two Guys Drinking coffee mugs. I can't remember what they were per mug, a couple bucks. I don't know, $2-3. But those were made in China. If I would have went and bought the mugs that were made in the USA, they would have been about $2 or $3 more. So almost double the cost. For a less than nonprofit podcast, that wasn't in the books, but I was guilty. Hey, let me stop and do a shout out. We got Kelly from Washington State on here. Great to see you. As always, we got Tom. We got Tammy on here today too. Hi, Tammy. Brian says, good to see you, Jim M. Diane's on here with us. Fran. I guess that's it for the ones that making comments. I don't know who else is watching. That's
Charlie's watching.
So go ahead. Where are we going now?
I'm gonna throw a little plug out for my daughter, by the way. If y'all want coffee cups made and all that stuff, my daughter makes all that stuff. She has her own little personal business. She can make you any coffee mug that you want made. So there are some American-made companies out there making stuff, but we don't know where they are.
Yep. That's Charlie's on here too. That's good to know, Fred. That's good to know.
I may be in contact, Fred.
Yeah.
Okay. Shall we continue?
Yep. I think.
Okay.
Did you want to show?
Pull up. I'm sorry. What's
550? 550?
Yeah, pull it up real fast, and then we'll pick up the speed here a little bit. So this is an interesting chart. So you mentioned inflation. As inflation continues to increase, people are getting a little concerned right now. There's this Maneko 64. He's over in actually England, and but he reports on things happening there, but also things that are happening in the United States. And he said, in his thoughts, hyperinflation is no longer just a possibility. It's rapidly becoming a reality. And we'll talk more about this later. And we've talked about this so many times. When people start to fear inflation, they start moving towards tangible assets. That could be land. It could be product of some kind. Of course, gold and silver fall into that category. So he's talking about gold prices here. In Germany, which is a classic example of hyperinflation, you can see that from 1919 to 1922. He's got a little red line there. And then after that, the hyperinflation really kicked in. And if you look over to the chart on the right, that's the United States paper dollars per ounce of gold. And you can see that red line there. And his theory is that we are on the verge of that parabolic line going up. Yeah. That's his theory. Take that for what it's worth. And so that's the inflation thing. If we move on to housing, the housing post 6-40, the housing market grinded to a halt in late summer, which is really fascinating. And I'm seeing it here in Bradford. I'm seeing a lot more signs for house for sale going up around the community. This is interesting. typically speaking, the beginning of summer, spring, summer is the big season. Fall, winter, things are dying down. People aren't buying houses in the middle of snowstorms. They're buying houses when it's 80 degrees and it's beautiful out there. But we're seeing the housing market come to a grinding halt. Granted, it was late summer, but we're not at winter. And if you can pull up image 649, Jim, this is the construction data.
Whoa.
And it goes back, all the way back to 1964. So you see images of it going up and down, getting better, getting worse, all that sort of thing. And in 2024, which would make sense with the jobs going down, we see that U.S. construction spending year over year is now falling dramatically and is now in decline.
What happened in 08?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well,
I'm
What's that,
sorry.
Brad?
I said, what happened in 08? Oh, my goodness.
Well, that was the financial crisis.
Okay. I missed it. I'm sorry.
And then in post 5.8, commercial real estate crisis deepens. Office vacancy rates are at record highs. Now, we saw a lot of that happen during the certificate of vaccination. I'll just call COVID.
the scandemic.
Yeah. And so we saw that back then, and we're hearing about, workers returning to the office, or you'd think they were returning to the office. Most of them have at this point. Even at the federal government level, they have required people to return to the office. So, but these office vacancy rates are skyrocketing and are at all-time highs at this point.
I believe it.
So I would, if I can think that through, I assume that's higher than it was during COVID. So, although that might not be true because the people may still have been paying rent on that office space. There was just no people in it. So anyhow, office space.
I blame that on technology though, because people are starting to do office work the same way we're doing this podcast right now. I think technology is eliminating the office now.
That's a very good possibility. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, somebody has to make a mortgage payment on those buildings.
I agree. I agree.
Well,
Okay.
that's the sad part. There's a lot of office buildings that are going to be unoccupied, and even to the point, there's a lot of government buildings that are going to be unoccupied, and rightfully so. I mean, we're paying the price of doing things inefficiently, and if we start to pare down and try to become more efficient and operate more efficient, then you're going to have this kind of thing. Do we have to make a choice between let's be bloated and everybody's happy and we got jobs in full offices, or do we want to be lean and more efficient and some jobs are going to go away and office buildings are going to be empty? I don't know the answer to that, but I can see that dilemma.
In a free enterprise capitalistic system, if a business is failing, it will simply go out of business.
Right.
And then someone will buy it up for pennies on the dollar, and they'll turn it into a successful business. Money will reallocate. Unfortunately, we don't live in a free enterprise system anymore, and we're about to enter part of that ties in perfectly with that discussion. And so the system is not being allowed to reset. Right now, the system wants higher interest rates, for example. But we're going to give it lower interest rates.
Yeah. And again, I agree 100% with what you're saying on the free market economy. The pressure then becomes a couple of different things. Number one, the lower interest rate, the less interest we have to pay on the enormous federal debt, which continues to climb, and the interest continues to climb. The higher the interest rates, the less likely manufacturing and other companies are going to expand because the cost of money is going up. Holding inventories would cause prices to go up because interest rates are higher. So I mean, it's one of those things. It's a double-edged sword. It really is. I mean, I can see it from both sides. If you raise interest rates, it could further collapse the economy.
Well, here we go, Jim. There, you just said a key phrase there. If we raise interest rates, the problem is that it shouldn't be our decision to raise or to lower. It should be the marketplace.
Well,
If the
sure,
government
but
wants to sell bonds, then the government goes to the marketplace and says, we got $1 trillion here to sell. And the marketplace determines what the cost of that interest rate is. The Federal Reserve doesn't. The president.
Well, unfortunately, we have this little agency called the Federal Reserve that is controlling the interest rates.
Which is why we need to get rid of it, not to schmooze up to it, but to get rid of it.
I agree. And I'll tell you what, if they did that, and then see the problem is, and Jim, you and I have talked about this for years. The problem is the cure is going to be extremely painful for the short to mid-term period. And nobody wants pain.
Yeah, you're
so
absolutely right.
all the correct solutions are going to cause immediate pain that people don't want.
Yep.
And so that you got government officials whose goal is not to be good for the country or for the people. Their goal is to be reelected. They don't want to cause people pain.
Yeah.
Therein lies the problem.
And we're going to get into this very next section.
Okay.
Can we move in? So
take us there.
Let's talk about federal deficits.
Okay.
So the U.S. federal deficit in August exploded. Second highest on record. A year ago was the highest at $380 billion for the month of August. This year we came in at $340. Granted, that improved a bit, but that also included record levels of tariff revenue. So if you took away the tariffs, it would have been the same. Here's the bottom line with that. And today is so important. Let's see what the Federal Reserve does. But countries like India, for example, post 616, and it's been a trend for a long time, but the trend is accelerating. They're dumping U.S. treasuries. People don't want our debt anymore. And what they're doing is they're buying gold. If anybody's wondering why the gold price is going up, it's because the central banks around the world are buying gold. They're dumping dollars and buying gold. So the bankers never lose. That's all I can say. And then here we go, Jim. This one infuriates me. A month and a half ago, I think we were on the air at the time. The one big beautiful bill was being, it went through the Senate, it went through the House. President Trump signed it like the first week in August or so, and I'm like, okay, one big beautiful bill. The whole budget thing is resolved for a long time, right? Because it's one big beautiful bill. But guess what? In post 626 and 751. Congress races to avoid a government shutdown as partisan standoff deepens. Didn't we just solve this?
That was my question. I'll be honest with you. I don't understand that at all.
I think every American, Democrat, Republican, whether you like the person in the White House or not, whoever should be absolutely, totally outraged and should say, and I won't say the words online here, but people should be absolutely, totally outraged after we were told this was the one big, beautiful bill.
You know why?
We had to put it through, and now they're talking not even a month, not even 2 months, 6 weeks later, they're talking about shutting down the government again over spending bills.
I'll tell you why, because we are not the United States of America. We are the divided states of America. And every time one president gets in, well, the other party attacks that president every time. And no one stands for America. Everybody stands for the party that they represent. So we are the divided states of America. Then what does the Bible say about that? A party that you cannot.
But the question is, are the average people going to find, and you know where I stand politically, are the average people going to stand united against the powers that ought not to be? And that includes everyone. And well, maybe not everyone. There might be an exception here or there. But Congress, the Senate, the House, the president, whoever.
They won't.
All right.
People will rise up against their own team players.
People make it personal, like you're attacking them when you come up and you say say you're a Democratic and a Republican guy gives you an idea, they're going to spit in your face because you're a Republican.
And argue again, you don't phrase Democrat or Republican. You simply
or
say,
even the third strand in the liberal.
You just simply say, as an American, is the one big beautiful bill constitutional? And if the answer is no, then you don't vote for it. I don't care what party you belong to. No
but
one.
What do they tell you? Just sign it and we'll figure it out later. No. Just sign it.
Well, I'm looking for the solution. And the only solution I see is we start speaking as an American, is this constitutional? I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Green Party, Independent, no party at all. As an American, was the or whatever bill that they're about to put through here to spend more money. As an American, is this whatever they're going to propose constitutional? And if it isn't, it gets voted down. Period.
All right. Let me give you an example of why this is not, at least so far, is not working.
We hasn't been tried.
It
hasn't been tried.
Now,
every Republican was for the one big beautiful bill. Every Democrat did other stuff.
Let me give you a little microcosm, something I did yesterday. I did a post. Actually, before I did the post, I went to the Freedom Index and looked at the 119th, the 119th Congress so far in all the bills. And I found out that Glenn Thompson was only voting constitutionally 60% of the time. John Fetterman was 0% of the time. And Dave McCormick, who is now the golden boy of the Republican Party in Pennsylvania, only voted constitutionally 67% of the time. Yeah. So I took it upon myself to write emails to all three of those individuals. I sent them a copy to the link for their voting record and asked for an explanation. And then I created the post and put the links and said, okay, people, it's time people start acting. It's time that we get together. We as Americans, not as Republicans, because two of those people were Republicans, and I'm in the Republican Party, and I'm giving them hell saying, why are you doing this? So you don't do it as Republicans or Democrats, you do it as Americans. And say, you're not following the Constitution. Why not? And I encouraged everybody to do that. It was like freaking crickets. Yeah. I didn't get a single comment on that. I don't know if anybody clicked on the link, but you think somebody would at least comment on it.
If you got a party member that stuck 100% to the Constitution, they would sabotage him, because we don't want a guy that's morally correct. We want somebody who's going to win. And that's what they look at. They ignore the fact that this person is constitutionally sound. They want somebody who's going to win. And that is the biggest problem that we have in politics today. They just look for the person that they know that can win. They don't care if they're constitutionally sound. They believe in the Constitution. They stand for the Constitution. No, you got to be savvy. You got to be a little bit of a weasel, and you know how to win. That's what they want.
Well, yeah, and that's all that. So I'm going to make this statement here.
Can I make one more comment?
Go for it.
I had a conversation with our friend Chris Vleck up in Canada, and he said something that was, I think, very profound. I'd share it here. He said, people don't want to be free. They just want to be subjugated by people they like.
Mm-hmm. I think that could be very true.
Yeah. All right, go ahead.
And look into the solution just on that, and then we'll get into the tariff talk here. You know what? My recommendation is that we give this, I'm an American and I'm for the Constitution, a try. And that means there's no references of any kind on any conversation, any Facebook post or anything that says Democrat or Republican or any party. You simply say, as an American, I believe Glenn Thompson violated the Constitution. You don't say Republican. As an American, I believe John Fetterman violated the Constitution. You don't say Democrat. Because every time we use the words Democrat or Republican, that causes division. And if you do that, you're part of the problem. I'll move on before I get banned off of this show or something. I get hate mail. So let's go to tariffs because that's a huge thing. And there were some big notes. And we never got to this part during our last monthly meeting or gathering here. So, yeah. So there we go. Tom, I agree with you. Stop using Democrats, Republicans. I'm an American. So I'm going to go through a couple of things here because I want to get to the big topic, which is the Supreme Court and the tariff. So in July, the trade deficit jumped. Exports actually went down. So our trade deficit actually got worse in July. So that's not going so well. There was a neat little thing out here, and I'm just jumping over this quickly. The de minimis ruling that was out from years ago that said, and I never heard of it at all. That said that goods less than $200 didn't have to go through the normal, commerce processing when they came into the country. Like they wouldn't be subject to tariffs or anything else like that. In recent years, they raised it to $800. Well, about a month ago, they took that away. So all those goods would now have to go through the typical tariff processing. What that did, which was fascinating, and there's this multi-step process here. So first, 25 nations, mostly European nations, suspended all postal service to the United States. Suspended it all. That dropped trade or postal service business 80% from Europe over to the United States to Europe, or at least the one way. Trade is kind of, I guess, coming back around. I know a gentleman who's from Scotland, and he asked his mom that, what's going on. And she checked into it, says, you know what, you can do it now again, or you can do it.
You can.
But there's a lot of paperwork and it costs a lot more.
And the reason why I say you can is I got a packet right here from Scotland, from my buddy Harvey, who lives in Scotland. Yeah. And in 250 and under, you don't have to pay the tariffs on. He told me himself.
When was that sent?
This was I got this on 8/1/25. Okay.
So they're working out whatever deals they're working out right now. But initially it dropped at 80%. And that's what I said, that Scottish guy talked to his mom and said it went up more. It became more expensive for her because he just received something too. Mm-hmm. So anyhow, when did you get it?
8/1/25. So
that was before the rolling took place.
Okay.
Yep. That was before the rolling took place because this happened in August. So if you got it on 8/1, it wasn't affected by that at that point. So the big thing is the lower courts ruled the tariffs unconstitutional. Now it's going up to the Supreme Court. So let's go and just pull up image 2.1, Jim. I'm going to read this here. And, maybe your audience will give us an extra 15 minutes if that's possible. I don't know. So I asked AI about this, and of course, take AI for whatever it's worth. But I thought that this was a nice summary. I think it balanced it. It gave both points of view. I thought it did a very nice job. I was kind of impressed by it. So it says the U.S. Constitution vests Congress with the power to impose tariffs, which are taxes levied on imported goods. This power is primarily outlined in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1, which states that Congress has the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises. Tariffs are also covered by Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3, the Commerce Clause, which empowers Congress to regulate commerce with foreign nations. While the Constitution grants Congress the power to set tariffs, Congress has historically, this would be what I'd call the annotated Constitution, historically delegated authority to the president to adjust tariffs under certain circumstances, notably the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930, setting the highest tariff rate since 1828. There's debate whether or not that hurt or made the Great Depression worse. It probably did, but it's open for debate. Prompted Congress to begin delegating some of this authority to the president in 1934. In that year, Congress passed the Reciprocal Trade Agreements Act, which is a phrase that we're hearing a lot of right now, allowing the president to negotiate trade agreements and proclaim tariff reductions. Subsequent laws, such as the Trade Act of 1973 and the Trade Act of 74, expanded the president's ability to modify tariffs. However, the delegation of tariff authority to the president has faced scrutiny. For instance, some argue that laws like the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, the IEEPA, which President Trump utilized to impose certain tariffs, do not explicitly permit presidential tariff actions. In sum, the Constitution delegates or designates Congress as the primary authority on tariffs, but historical practice and subsequent laws have significantly shaped the role of the president in setting and adjusting tariffs as an instrument of trade and tariff and foreign policy. Okay. So technically the power rests in Congress. Historically, Congress has, I would say, has not done their job and allowed the president, for example, or maybe others, however it works out, to take on some of that responsibility, or even maybe most of that responsibility. I would call that the annotated Constitution. So whatever side you're on, this is what's going to be debated at the Supreme Court level. Are these constitutional or are they not? Which, by the way, the lower court apparently didn't say every tariff was unconstitutional, but it did say some of them were. Okay. And I haven't read the court hearing exactly to tell you the details on that. So why is this?
Historically, the Constitution, the Congress has used the tariffs to get themselves rich. That's why they're all filthy rich. They know where the money's going. They know where to invest their money because they're imposing it. They've been over the years. They have been.
Okay, so that's insider trading and all that. But the tariff collected goes into the general fund of the United States Treasury. Sure, if they're doing insider trading and so on and so forth, because they know, anyhow, that's a whole other topic there. But yeah, they're all insider scams, Fred. I agree with you 100% there. So here's where it becomes important to the average American. So Image 540, Bessent, who's our commerce, or who's our not commerce secretary, Treasury Secretary, warns of U.S. embarrassment if tariffs rolled illegal. In 559, U.S. would become a third world nation without tariffs, Trump says. Actually, pull that image up, Jim.
Which one?
Image 3.2. Tariffs, Trump repression. So this is what he said. Tariffs have a huge, and this was about a month ago, tariffs are having a huge positive impact on the stock market. I would question that, but anyhow, almost every day new records are set. In addition, hundreds of billions of dollars are pouring into our country's coffers. If a radical left court ruled against us at this late date in an attempt to bring down or disturb the largest amount of money, wealth creation, influence the USA has ever seen, it would be impossible to ever recover or pay back these massive sums of money and honor. It would be 1929 all over again, a Great Depression. If they were going to rule against the wealth, strength, and power of America, they should have done so long ago, at the beginning of the case, where our entire country, while never having a chance at this kind of greatness again, would not have been put in 1929 style jeopardy. There is no way America could recover from such a judicial tragedy, but I know our court system better than anyone. There is no one in history that has gone through the trials, tribulations, and uncertainties, such as I, and absolutely terrible, but also amazingly beautiful things can happen. Our country deserves success and greatness, not turmoil, failure, and disgrace. God bless America. So there's two things I want to pull out. You can drop that. Thank you, James. First off, he says, if the courts were to rule against us at the beginning, there were plenty of people at the very beginning that said this should have gone through Congress because that's what the Constitution said. He could have also asked for the court to take a ruling on it or consulted with them to see if it was constitutional. So that option was there to start with. The second thing that I take offense with, because we just talked about it, was saying that the court was radical left. We just read the AI. There are some that believe this is very constitutional for Congress to have the authority. I think that was a ploy to get the right to go against the left if this goes wrong, when in fact, if the court system rules that these tariffs, because they were done by the president, were unconstitutional because the Constitution says Congress should have done it, that doesn't mean the court may very well politically have been left, maybe even radical left, but the ruling could have been very constitutional. And that's what I care about. I don't care what the court's political thing is. I want to know whether or not their ruling is constitutional or not. And so if they rule that these tariffs were unconstitutional, there are plenty of people that are going to say, yeah, they ruled correctly. So, we just read the article, section, and clause that says that. The question now becomes, are you listening to the Constitution or the annotated Constitution? But let me
Jim,
just say one thing that I'm getting.
Go ahead and finish, and then I got
because I should have said this first. So what would happen? Why would the United States go into a Great Depression? It would require a refund bill of $1 trillion. And that would have been the tariffs collected so far. And so we would have to refund that money. And then, okay, Diane, we'll get there because there is no problem with tariffs. I don't have a problem with tariffs either. The Constitution doesn't have a problem with tariffs. The founding fathers didn't have a problem with tariffs. The founding fathers said that the tariffs go through Congress. That's the issue here. So if we have to refund the $300-400 billion we've already collected, that means the deficit instantaneously goes up $300-400 billion because we got to come up with the money from someplace. We got to borrow it. And then we're not going to collect the other money from now till next June. That's the time frame they're using here. So that total lost revenue, either refunded or not coming in, is $1 trillion. So the deficit will basically within the next, almost instantaneous overnight, but definitely by the end of June, would rise $1 trillion because of that. And then we should have talked about this earlier, but we're talking about manufacturing. Should have brought this up underneath manufacturing, but they did an analysis. Record share of U.S. businesses are diverting China investments, which is what we want, right? We want businesses to move out of China. However, their top choice is Southeast Asia. So the vast majority of U.S. businesses are moving their business. Many of them are moving their businesses out of China, but they're moving them to Vietnam, to India, to Bangladesh.
I want them in the USA. I don't care about those other countries. I want them in the USA.
Yeah, but business leaders are not doing that, Fred. We hear about some big
problem. We're still buying from other countries.
But anyhow, I should have mentioned that in manufacturing. Those are my notes. Go ahead, Jim. Go take it. Bring us back to the
You hinted to this earlier. The onus for this entire problem, and it's not just tariffs. It's the bloated government in general. It is the outrageous violation of the 10th Amendment. The Congress has abdicated its authority under the Constitution to just about every agency and other position there is. Abdicated it to the president on tariffs. They turn over all of their authority to the administrative state. That's why we're running by an administrative state. Congress, I'll tell you what, you could eliminate Congress today. You could fire every one of their asses and tell them to go home, and we wouldn't miss a beat.
Yeah.
We would not miss a beat because they don't do a damn thing anymore. Okay. And we really need to address the root cause is a real popular term right now, both in the medical, the health field and politics. The root cause. Let's look at the root cause. The root cause is no one in government is following the Constitution as the founding fathers laid it out. Exactly. And all this Supreme Court ruling is going to do is add another line in that annotated Constitution that took our Constitution from one oversized piece of parchment to a 3,000-page document.
In 250 years.
So based on what you just said, James, I am believing that you are in favor of these tariffs being ruled unconstitutionally because the founding fathers, per the original Constitution, said the tariffs should have gone through Congress.
I don't wrap myself up in being concerned about the terrorists. I honestly don't. I could give a shit, because I want people to go back to the Constitution. And if they want, let's put it this way, if the Congress wants the president to have authority, then propose a constitutional amendment and says the president has, the sole authority to levy tariffs. Make it a constitutional amendment. I don't say that's right, but then they would be following the Constitution. But they won't. They want to, what Congress wants to do is they want to wash their hands over it, and then they want to bitch about it.
Okay. So I'm still
They
getting the
wanna fight
impression you
about
think that tariffs should be ruled unconstitutional. Yes or no?
Yes or no? I think you should. No, I think you should. I think you should go back to the Constitution and say, what does it say? And if the tariffs are to go to Congress, then take it out of the president's hands, and then make Congress rule on it immediately.
Okay.
Force their hand.
I would agree.
Force their hand.
So now with that belief system, you might just be called radical left now.
No, I'm not. I'm radical Constitution. I'm not radical left.
And the biggest problem that we have is, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just saying, it said the radical left court system. I'm just saying you might be labeled that as a result.
Our problem is that we have too many political judges. Too many political judges. Judges are not doing their job as they're supposed to be hired. They're all political. And so when one judge doesn't get the job done, they go get another liberal or another judge to change the rule based on their party. That's our problem.
That's why we need to go back to the original Constitution, which is a very small pocket-sized thing, which every student in every public school, and actually probably private school as well. I know a private school that had received, actually thanks to this gentleman up on the left side of my screen, Mr. Jim T., received a copy of the Constitution for all of the older students. So they are learning about it at that school. I hope every student in every school is learning, because it's a federal mandate. So
I think all students should carry one of these. All students should carry one of these, and they shouldn't trust just AI.
Yeah. Going back to your point, Jim, though, as to whether I would be viewed radical left or not, I would say that if it is up to the Congress, which the Constitution at least indicates that in most instances or some, then force the Congress to take action on it, or just drop it all together. And we'll see. What all they're going to do is they're going to force a court ruling that's going to further expand the annotated Constitution, and that really is what pisses me off.
Can we get through these last two topics?
Go ahead. It's 4 minutes after 10.
I know. Your audience, if you hung on this long, you might want to stick around for the next couple of minutes here. Okay. I'll go through the first one very quickly. Most people didn't know about it, but over Labor Day weekend, the Southeast Asia got together. That would be China, India. That right there is almost half the world's population. It was not on the mainstream news, but they got together with their Shanghai Cooperative Organization, the SCO, and they talked economics. And Jim, can you pull up image 6.8? Trump did reference it, and he made a very interesting statement in it.
6.8.
Yeah.
Right here.
Because it goes in one direction, it goes in another, and then it goes into another. It's very fascinating. So the big question to be answered is whether or not President Xi of China will mention the massive amount of support and blood that the United States of America gave to China in order to help it secure its freedom from a very unfriendly foreign invader. Many Americans died in China's quest for victory and glory. This, of course, is referencing World War II. I hope that they are rightfully honored and remembered for their bravery and sacrifice. May President Xi and the wonderful people of China have a great and lasting day of celebration. Please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un as you conspire against the United States of America, President Donald J. Trump. So that if you did not see that and were not aware of it, you can bring that down, Jim. That tweet got a lot of worldwide attention. Uh-oh, are we still there? It starts off very nice and everything. Were they conspiring against the United States? Actually, they probably were. I don't know if it was, I would probably say it was very deliberate as well. But they are planning on moving beyond the United States at this point. And as evidence of that, there were pictures that came out that, after that, the president of India and the president of China and President Putin all gave each other big handshakes and hugs and talked about how, they're just, they really just don't care about the United States. They're still doing business with us. They're still doing various other things. But right after that, actually, it might have even been right before it, post 566, and we mentioned it, India goes for gold instead of U.S. treasuries. And if you watched the dollar index yesterday and for the year, I think we might have talked about this before on the last month, the dollar has dropped 10-12% this year. Yesterday, it dropped into the 96 range, not to get into what all that means, but that means that it took a major hit yesterday in anticipation of the Federal Reserve lowering interest rates. If the Federal Reserve lowers interest rates, it's going to drop the value of the dollar even more. The one thing that's supporting the value of the dollar right now is that in some accounts, savings accounts, for example, you can still get 3 or 4% interest rates. If interest rates come down, then you get 0%, which I would say, yes, it drops the deficit. We don't have to spend as much on the interest on a deficit, but all that money that people saved and put into the bank, they don't get paid. And when we did this between like 2010 and 2020, the average American with money in their savings and checking accounts that were not earning any interest because it's 0.0000 lost, I think the last estimate was 15 to 18 trillion dollars on interest they could have received into their savings accounts. So when we drop interest rates, we are bailing out the federal government and hurting the person who did the right thing by saving their money, working hard, saving their money, and putting there for retirement. Because if you had $100,000 and you got 5% interest, it would be $5,000 a year. If you got 10% interest, that's $10,000 a year. If you did really well and you saved $200,000 and you could get 10% interest, you got $20,000 a year to live off of, and you'd never draw down that account. At 0% interest, which is where we are heading, because we got to bail out the federal government and its deficit spending, the average American is going to get squashed in this. Okay, last thing here. Can I move on, or did you have a question, James?
But
No,
all
go
your
ahead.
financial experts, all the financial experts said, don't put your money in saving, invest your money. I've heard too many people say just putting it in a basic savings account don't make you money. Invest your money is how you really make money.
I'd say buy gold and silver.
Putting it in a safe-
That's what I'm saying. But that's an investing thing when you're buying gold and silver instead of just sitting in a bank and letting it do nothing, because the banks own it.
Fred, you're missing out the fact that savings is investing. Okay, what are you ultimately after?
What I'm saying
Are you
is,
after
everybody
No,
says to invest
hold
your
on.
money.
Hold on one second. What you're after, when you put your money in the stock market, you're not putting your money into just IBM. You're putting your money in IBM because you're going to get a return on your investment. You think IBM stock is going to go up 10%. You think IBM stock might go up 50% or 5%.
Right.
Stocks can be risky. You get in at the wrong time, you could also lose that money. If stocks are going up 5% a year, say, or even say 10% a year, which can be a little risky, or you can also get a better return on it too. If the company makes a great big announcement, it could go up a lot.
Right.
Larry Ellison made $111 billion last week in one day because he got a nice big government contract or something, or says he will, on AI stuff, which that's a separate topic. So if you're older, you might not want to risk your money in the stock market because stocks can go up and down. Okay, if you get a 10% return, that's fabulous. But if your local bank, your savings account is paying 10%, you can put that same money there, get your 10% there, and it's safe. You're not going to lose the money.
Yeah, but
That's
I said
why.
gold and silver is an
So,
investment too.
yeah, it
That's what I
is.
mean.
But some
Gold and
people
silver.
do not want that. You know, if you think gold's going to go up 10% a year and your savings account is paying you 10%, and you're like, I'm 70 years old, I don't want to risk losing my money. I'd rather be in a nice, safe savings account where I can get 10%. Then I know exactly what I'm going to have every year. So putting your money in a savings account that gets 10%, that is investing also. It's a matter, you know, you don't just have to invest in stocks or bonds or gold and silver. If you can get a return at the bank, that's investing also. And it's a very safe way of doing it. So anyhow, you won't be able to do that.
Why don't, Jim, let's,
Okay,
it's 12 after. Let's hit a couple key points and then we'll close it out.
Okay, so this is a big one. And Jim, you talked about that we need to get government out of stuff. So there's a new phrase out there, folks, and you really need to be watching this closely because some things have already happened and it's taking over in a much bigger way. State-sponsored capitalism. When you hear that word, if you don't know what that means, oh, state-sponsored capitalism. That sounds so beautiful. What a nice phrase, maybe. No, what that means is the government, the state, is going to be getting involved in free enterprise even more than it already has. If you look at this from two different ways, one could say this is communistic. One can also say it's fascist. Okay, and I'm going to focus on the fascist then because that actually says the merger of state and corporate powers. At least that was Mussolini's definition back in the 1930s. And he said fascism should better be known as corporatism, but we'll leave it at fascism. So who was saying this? Post 562, Ray Dalio. Who's Ray Dalio? He founded Bridgewater Associates, a pretty big financial firm out there, okay, like a hedge fund, that sort of thing. U.S. slides towards 1930 style autocracy. Not a good thing. Folks on the right here, there was a thing because of what's happening and who is promoting this, which by the way is Trump. The headline said, Comrade Trump, MAGA starts to embrace socialism. Okay. 14, this was on CNBC. So this is post 642. 14 stocks of companies that could benefit from Trump's state capitalism. Okay. He's the one that's promoting this. State-sponsored ties to mega corporations is merging faster. Welcome to the new world order. Okay, so let's give some specifics here. We heard about the Nippon U.S. Steel deal that went down about 2 months ago. What most people didn't hear about was there was a golden share rolling, which said, Nippon, you can buy U.S. Steel, but the U.S. president will have the golden share, which means the U.S. president on big things like building a factory, closing a factory, the president of the United States has the final say. Okay? I don't know if I want the president of the United States having the final say. Even if you like Trump today, what about the next president? You might not like the next president. And if U.S. still feels they need to build a factory or close a factory or do something like that, the president of the United States is going to make the final say on that? I'm not so sure. Next one, Department of Defense. This is comment 426. Department of Defense shareholder becoming a shareholder in a rare earth mining company. So now we're starting to buy up these mining companies. The last one, and this one's very fascinating because this will lead into a whole topic now. I'm going as fast as I can here, James, but this is extremely important. Trump launches the Manhattan Project. Remember about 3-4 weeks ago, we took a 10% stake in Intel Corporation? The U.S. government now owns 10% of Intel Corporation. What's very fascinating about that is a week before that deal went through, Trump called out the CEO of Intel, which, by the way, Intel is a major microprocessor firm. Jim, you would know that from your computer stuff. Trump called out the CEO of Intel and said that he needs to be fired because he works for the communist Chinese people. A week later, the deal goes through, and Trump says about the CEO of Intel, he is a wonderful person, going to have a great future with this company. It looks to me like pressure was put that if you don't go along with this, we're going to make your life a living hell. And the CEO then went along with it, and everything is now rosy and cozy. You do your own research. You can come up with whatever analysis you can come up with, but I can't think of how you go from being a communist spy to a wonderful person in 1 week And in the middle of that week, there was a huge deal that allowed the U.S. government to take a 10% stake in Intel, which is the very definition of fascism. So let's continue because we're not done. Post 446, Trump says we will make Intel deals all day long. So state-sponsored capitalism is now official White House policy. You decide if this is good or bad. Steve Bannon rips into Trump. This was just this last week with a big dinner he had with Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg and them. Steve Bannon's like, what the hell are you doing, Trump? Why are you meeting with these people? 6.5, post 6.5, White House reportedly launches a scorecard rating 500 plus companies on Trump loyalty, who's listed and how ratings are determined. Okay. Now, we don't know how that's going to be used because that's just being created now. But if it's going to be used in any way, shape, and form, like they used it on the CEO of Intel, then every company that wants a government bid, a government contract, is going to be cozying up and making sure that their official company marketing and policies are in alignment with the current administration, whether it be Trump's or the next one if the policies follow through to the next one. Here is one for transparency. You tell me why this one's happening. Post 762, this just came out 2 days ago. Trump advocates to end quarterly earnings reports by companies. One, what right does the President of the United States or Congress have to tell Alcoa, IBM, Jim Tingley's business, Island Business Systems, that they cannot release quarterly business reports?
Well, he can't.
I can't think of the reason why.
Go anywhere. That's not going to go anywhere.
Um,
Going back
well,
to
let's see.
6.5, going back to 6.5,
We're 6.5 here.
the White House reportedly launches.
And we still have to see how that plays out.
Whenever I see a comment like that, reportedly or according to sources or our sources say, and they don't show you in black and white the proof, I always, and it doesn't matter where they're coming from or what they're saying. As soon as you say reportedly or according to sources, I look at all of that with skepticism. Just my comment there. Reportedly launches a scorecard. All right, show me the freaking scorecard. Don't tell me they reportedly did it. So, and yeah, Trump's big on loyalty. I don't think that's neither right nor wrong. But you know, if he is, then show the public what they're doing. Somebody, there's going to be a whistleblower somewhere. Show me the scorecard. Don't tell me reportedly done it. So that's my only comment on that.
Okay. Well, I just did a quick Google thing. There's articles on Forbes magazine, Forbes, Yahoo Finance, and probably others as well. I didn't go back to the post because I was looking for something new. So it's out there. Look at exactly what it is, how it's used, so on and so forth, because that is breaking news. That's 6.5. So that would have been just a week ago. So let's follow that. But these that were mentioned were very factual and historical at this point in time. So that is something for everyone to be extremely concerned about in my mind. And Fred, you said something at the beginning of the show, because I was accused of being part of that group of people that murdered Charlie Kirk.
You were?
I don't think I did.
I didn't know you were a part of that group.
Yeah, I was. Because there's a post that's going on around Facebook, on Facebook pages. And it talks about, you know, a lady, actually it was a representative, Paula Luna. I think she's actually a Republican. Actually, I'm sure she is because of what she said. And you know, she was blaming the, saying that, the killer of Charlie Kirk was a transvestite, and you Democrats, you push these shots onto our kids and all this other stuff. But right before that section of it, she said, and because she said some other stuff up above too, she said, and it was all in capitalize. It was all cap. So capitalization means you're shouting, okay, when you text and stuff like that. It said, and all you people who called us fascists, you're responsible for this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what?
Well, what I heard was he was part of
I call state-sponsored capitalism fascism. but I did
What
have,
I
I
heard
had
from the
nothing
experts
to
that
do.
he was part of a socialist, a liberal, socialist republic. I mean, Democratic group. I didn't hear anything about what you're saying right now, but that's okay. I
Well,
mean,
it's out on it's out on Facebook
Well,
post.
all right.
It's,
I would
forth.
say the meaning behind that comment was, and you can, I'm reading between the
oh, yeah,
lines
you look
here,
at the
but
local news.
my reading on that was your incendiary talk was the reason for this. It could have been used, they could have used the word fascist. They could have used any word in there.
Hitler.
That if it was
very
incendiary
specific.
towards what he was saying,
Oh,
that's what
that
he
sentence was fine.
What?
Huh? I didn't hear it.
Repeat.
That sentence was capitalized, and since according to Paula Luna, because I believe that state-sponsored capitalism is fascism, and I will use that word, I am part of the group that killed. According to her, I am part of the group that murdered Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, I was told it was a group of Democratic
you're-
socialists, but I didn't see you as a Democratic socialist, because if I thought you were a Democratic socialist, I probably wouldn't even be on the podcast.
I think
I'm a free enterprise capitalist, Fred. I'm a constitutional person.
I said
I'm as far
socialist.
right.
I
I'm
said
as far
socialist.
right as you can possibly go. I'm
Okay,
also
I
an
said
outspoken
socialist.
that is seeing some of these things. I'm not very happy with what I'm seeing. I don't like the phrase state-sponsored capitalism.
I don't like it either. I think it's just another threat of division. It's just another threat of division. That's all it is. And every time another group is created, it's still another threat of division. Until you start addressing yourself as an American, you're just another threat of division.
State-sponsored capitalism, if a corporation doesn't toe the line with the government, they're going to get hell for it. You're not rewarding the company based on innovation. You're rewarding the company on following the official government line. So if we get into another COVID scandemic and the government and a business has a contract with the government, well, they look it up and say, you know what? We think you're a communist spy now. You need to do this. Next week later, they change the company changes the policy and they say, oh, you're the most wonderful people in the world. That was the exact same. That's basically what happened with Intel. And that's factual history that took place in July, August. So
I don't know anything about the Intel situation.
well, most people don't. Which is why you have me on the show.
Right.
And I got all my reference notes here, and you can go there and you can do your own research and draw your own conclusions for yourself.
But I do believe that because of all of the comments that the local media has made all this time, calling the mega people, just like Hitler, and they call him Trump just like Hitler. You put the image in young people's minds to go out and hurt somebody, and that's exactly what they're doing, and we're seeing the seed of it. It's
again, I think all the talk, all the rhetoric out there, regardless of who it's coming from or how you want to view it as to what side it's coming from, if it's incendiary in any fashion whatsoever, it's out of place. We have all agreed that we need to start acting like Americans instead of the partisan politics
right.
and the division. And even to the point, Jim, you took offense to what she was saying and reacted in a certain way. She was saying something to get a reaction. Maybe she was. I can't explain what was behind her thought.
James, she knows that this state-sponsored capitalism is fascism. And since this is the official tone that the government of this country is going down, we want to try to stop that word from being used.
I can't say that was her intention with that. In other
And
words,
I don't either.
Please let me finish my thought. You're taking a statement she said, and in the context that she was saying it was, incendiary talk caused Charlie Kirk to be killed. And then you're taking that statement and you're saying that anybody that doesn't believe in state-sponsored capitalism killed Charlie Kirk. No, I don't make the connection there at all.
No,
And
she
they
was
did
talking about
the
those.
thing-
She was talking about those who murdered Charlie Kirk, and in capitalization, she said, and every one of you who called us fascists are responsible for this. And I'm calling her a fascist because she believes in the merger of state and corporate powers.
But you're now calling her a fascist. You didn't call her a fascist before Charlie Kirk was killed. So how can you?
No, I
be-
call her.
you-
No, I've been calling. No, her post
it's
came
the
out last week. Fred, her
But
post
it's
came
the
out last week.
context.
I've been
It's the
saying this for months
context in
now.
which it was said.
and
What's
the-
that?
yeah.
It was the
My thing is,
context in which it was
If
said.
you look at a lot of black leaders out there today, I'm a terrorist. I'm a black conservative. That's considered a terrorist. But I don't let that thought from their mind control me. I know who I
No,
am.
this isn't controlling me. What I'm saying is we need to use our words wisely, and
Ooh,
we
I
need
gotta
to be
get out of
aware
here
of these trigger points and so forth. My personal take and why it was grouped into this section is that this country is moving into a fascist state, and they're trying to make the word fascism. Anyone who questions the government's move into this state, because the government's moving in fascism, they're trying to link us to people who killed Charlie Kirk or something else. It's just like they did it during COVID. If you spoke up against COVID, you were some crazy person on this side. You were giving horse paste to your grandmother. It's all part of that same thing.
Yeah, I got 3 minutes.
Okay, it's 10:27. We got to wrap this up. Any final thoughts before we close this thing out in prayer? Because God knows we need it today. Final thoughts? Either one of you?
I said enough.
Okay. Jim, I normally have Fred close this out.
No, somebody else can close it,
You
James.
sure? You sure you don't want to pray us out of here?
I'm just a guest here. You never left. You never asked.
Fred, go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you, Lord, for this day and this for this time. I ask, Lord, that everybody would what they heard, that they would do their own research and study out for what's truth and what's false. And I just pray that God would continue to bring the darkness to the light. But I also pray that the Holy Spirit, that you would speak to us, that our thoughts would become your thoughts, Lord, that you would control what we say, and that we would lead by your word and not by man's word, because the devil comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And I pray for those people who ultimately killed Charlie Kirk, because his movement is going to be bigger than what people realize, because you killed somebody who did nothing wrong. I pray, Lord, that you would touch those people who are watching. And as you can see, the church growth is spiked because of those people that killed Charlie Kirk. So you guys are going to see more of this. So I just ask, Lord, that you bless everybody who's listening. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All righty. Hey, Jim, thank you so much for coming back on, and I look forward to the third Wednesday in October if you'll still do it. So
Yeah. Let's see what the Federal Reserve does today, and let's see what
Okay.
their policy going forward is. That's the big
all
news.
righty. Well, for everybody else, wherever you are, wherever you're listening from, whatever your day brings, we truly hope that you will be blessed.
And be a blessing to others.